Hello, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever time it is. Greetings. As always, I would appreciate it if somebody could let me know in the comments that you can hear and see me and all that stuff. And having said that, I will go ahead and just get started. So I promised a channel update, and that's kind of where we'll kick things off. If you've been watching the last several days, then you've kind of gotten a sneak preview, but I guess before I get ahead of myself, I'm not done with Midnight Suns. As I said in the, thank you, by the way, everybody, for letting me know that we're all good. As I said at the very end of the final episode of the Midnight Suns campaign, is that even though the campaign is done, I'm not 100% done playing it. We will end up doing more missions. So specifically, I'm going to record the Venom missions, their DLC missions, within the next couple of days and get those uploaded. Also, I will be doing a guide for Venom's legendary challenge, just like I did Deadpool's. So I may also do some more guides or tips for Midnight Suns. Beyond the challenges and some of the very direct puzzle solving that's in there, one of the challenges I've had making guides for Midnight Suns is, unlike XCOM, I feel like a lot of this stuff is laid out for you pretty well. Not every single aspect of the game, is, but a lot of it I think is pretty good already and kind of helps you understand what you need to do. And a lot of the guides that I've seen out there, honestly, I don't really think add much to the experience, and I don't want to produce something like that. So I will only make more guides for Midnight Suns if I see a chance to add real value. But also, as you may have seen this morning, we went live with, I guess, a preview or trailer analysis, hey Ray, for Lamplighters League. And that is something I'd like to do more of. In general, going forward, I don't have a plan for another ongoing Let's Play. I'm not saying we'll never do one again. I'm just saying right now, there isn't anything that's particularly compelling me, to do that. Hey, Ray, you want some attention? Or do you just want some camera time? You want your audience to get a chance to see you? Anyway, so we're going to focus on some of the more like scripted videos, and I'm going to try different types of things. May also comment on some things. So for example, Jake Solomon recently left Firaxis. I've been wanting to do a video about that and some issues related to it ever since it was announced. And I've just kind of been extraordinarily busy trying to first finish Midnight Suns, and then once Lamplighter League was announced, I put a lot of hours into that video. Hopefully people get something out of it. I always feel like when I do stuff like that, it's not that I'm not interested in selling people, but I want to show you what it looks like. And, so you can decide for yourself if you're interested. At any rate, so I may, by the way, that's the other thing. I may possibly even do a full review of Midnight Suns. I have mixed feelings about that. Mostly to do with the insane number of hours it'll take me to do it. And I just don't know how many people are out there that'll care. Like I don't mind putting in a lot of hours on a video. And I'm not a huge view chaser as a general rule, but like if I put 15 or 20 hours into a video, I can't have that get 500 views. Like my soul will not absorb that well. So anyway, I think that's it for the channel update. That kind of covers where I'm at. Oh no, I left out one key thing. So I also want to try to do potentially more guides for XCOM 2. There are ideas I've had for a very long time, and I just haven't gotten around to doing them. And amazingly, I mean, man, it's been over 6 years. I think we're coming up on 7 years at some point here. And people still watch my guides in big numbers. Like most months, my base building guide for XCOM 2 gets more views than anything else. Well, that or the one about how XCOM tricks us into beating ourselves. Those two, like, it's crazy to me, but gratifying. Like, I'm happy that people still love XCOM 2. So, anyway, since there does still seem to be interest in people watching guides and tip videos for XCOM 2, I am more than happy to do that. So I will do that as well. One question that I got asked before the stream, so I'm going to do that. And then, oh, I should have said this too. Like, please, if you have questions, go ahead and start posting them because I'm going to need something to talk about in a minute here. I'm going to run out of material, and I don't know that you want to just sit and watch me pet Ray for the next hour. Ray looked up at me like, no, that's okay though. Okay, so the question I got, and I thought it was an interesting one, was which of the legendary abilities from Midnight Suns did I think was like the best, and which one did I think was the worst? And I had to really think about that one because I think a lot of them are really just mediocre. You know, they're okay. Obviously, I get a lot of use out of the hunters because I don't think it's broken or anything, but it's good. And at 4 heroism, which is what most of them cost, but not all, it's usable. You know, like you can pay for that. And so I like the hunters a lot, but I wouldn't say it's the best. I think it's got to be the Hulks, even though it costs 6 to use. If you've built up his rage, you're pretty much killing just about everything on the map. And it's really hard to top that. Magic's is interesting to me. In my first campaign, when I first got it, I was like, this kind of sucks. Like, you don't do anything. And then I got to the final mission. And the way they do the final mission, where you can keep, like, if you take out a certain monster or enemy, you'll get like this kind of wild card, good for the legendary ability of whoever uses it. And so, you know, there were so many enemies, and that mission was so much harder than the others. I got huge mileage out of it. And so I really fell in love with her ultimate, because being able to taunt everything but take damage from none of them, it's pretty huge in that final mission. Now I have to admit, I don't find it as useful in most missions because you're able to just take out the guys on the map. If you've done a good job building up your deck and stuff and your mods and all that other stuff, you can just take them out and you don't really need what she can do. But anyway, that one's kind of an honorable mention because in its own way, it's pretty busted. But Hulk's World Breaker is insane. As far as the worst goes, I was initially having a difficult time figuring out which one I thought was the worst, because I was looking at character after character. Like Blade is a good example where I look at his and I'm like, it's okay. I don't think it's anything to write home about. It's fine. And then I got to Scarlet Witch and I knew my answer because hers sucks. It's so terrible. The fact that you have to KO yourself to use it, it just makes it a complete non-starter. And especially, like, you know, for people whose goal is to really build up and play on Ultimate 3, you're not allowed any revives on Ultimate 3. And so you just take out one of your heroes and then that's it. They're done. And it's just pathetic to me. So that's a really poorly designed card and I hate it. So that's my favorite and least favorite legendary abilities for Midnight Suns. Okay. I'm going to go to chat here and let me see what we've got. So somebody mentions that League of Lamplighters. I'm going to struggle to say that name for some reason. Looks good, and they hope that Harebrained Scheme does a good job. I agree with you. Wait, is it Scheme? Harebrained something. No, it's Harebrained Scheme. Sorry, I had a mental block there for a second. I agree. They have a really good track record. So, you know, that's hopeful. Jason Garza asks, any thoughts on Phoenix Point now that there have been some time since its release? Nothing new, Jason. I posted a video about Phoenix Point back when I played it, and I have heard it's better. I've heard that they've done a lot to the game to improve it, and that's great. I just don't think I care. I gave them my money, and I played the game that they released, and I thought it for me at least, it wasn't good. And it's like, you had your chance, it's hard enough for me to carve out time for gaming and making videos. I don't have time to keep going back to games I don't enjoy and see, oh, maybe I'll enjoy it now. So, I'm not saying other people shouldn't play it, but I just think for me, I gave them a fair shot and I didn't like it. And so, and I also won't lie. So like when I bought it, this is kind of an issue I have with that developer. They sold it as a Steam game, and then they took a pile of money from Epic and they made it Epic exclusive. And so they allowed you to get a refund if you wanted to, but if you wanted the game, it had to be on Epic. And so now I have a copy on Epic, which I don't even want that installer or that, system on my PC. I have to reinstall the Epic launcher if I want to play that game. And I don't want to. I hate they've built in these kind of spy tools to see what's in your Steam library and stuff. Like, that's just crap. So, but also, so not only do I have an issue with the Epic launcher, but I have an issue with a studio who sells the game as being one thing, and then because somebody paid them money, they say, oh, well, screw you, we're going to do this instead. I don't have an issue with somebody taking money from Epic out of the gate and launching and saying, you give me your money, I'm going to give you an Epic key. Okay, you're being above board. I can choose whether I want to be on Epic or not. But when you sell it as Steam and then you give me Epic, I don't dig that. And so I have a real lingering issue with them. And it does not endear them to me and make me want to give them a second chance. Yeah, Avatrum says, unfortunately, I doubt Midnight Suns will have anywhere close to the longevity that XCOM has to this day. I kind of agree. I mean, listen, I had made comments from before launch that I feared this game was not going to be a big hit. And I just was going by the number of views I saw for any videos related to it, both on my channel and on others, and the tone of the comments. And I think there is a fan base for it, but unfortunately, it's really funny because like when you start playing, like if you watched my playthrough, this was my second run. And in the beginning, it was really hard playing even on Heroic 3. I had to put a lot of work into trying to build up my decks. But then we got to a point where I was playing on, Ultimate 1 and Ultimate 2, and we were just stomping it. I mean, like, I probably should have bumped it to Ultimate 3 a long time ago. But what I didn't want to do is be going up and then down. Oh, no, that's too hard. And just kind of seesawing all the time. But it's in this weird place. If you truly get your decks refined, like mine in the campaign you saw are not anywhere near that level. If you get all the right mods and stuff, you can play on Ultimate 3 and wipe the map in one turn. So it's got this weird thing of like initially it's very difficult. It's funny because I'm realizing this is kind of what XCOM's problem has always been too. Um, so it's kind of too hard if you're trying a higher challenge level, and then you'll just reach a point where it's too easy and there's no challenge anymore. So I don't know that it's going to have that kind of longevity. And I also think that because the sales have been disappointing, they're not going to keep pushing a lot of money into it unless that turns around here really quickly. So you won't have any new content to keep, fueling new interest. By the way, before I forget, Mystery Meat, thank you very much for the super chat. I think it's called Lamp Genie One Wish, Unlimited Mimic Beacons, or Orange Gatorades. Okay, so I have to pick one. Unlimited Mimic Beacons or Orange Gatorade? I'll go Gatorade. Yeah. The problem with Unlimited Mimic Beacons is it's too cheaty. It just takes away every ounce of challenge in the game. Zapiel says, you've played the early build of Darkest Dungeon 2 a while ago on this channel. Very true. Would you consider doing one now that there has been new characters, biomes, and bosses added to it? Yes, I actually am thinking about doing that, at least off camera, giving it a try. I'm not hopeful because, frankly, I was shocked at how much I did not enjoy Darkest Dungeon 2. I really loved the first game, and I felt like literally every choice they made about the ways in which to change it made the game worse for me. I always knew they would make changes. I didn't really want just Darkest Dungeon with a new skin. Yeah, absolutely. Change it up. Unfortunately, yeah, man, I didn't care for that. And then from what I saw, what they ended up doing was kind of listening to the people who were most crazy about playing an insane number of hours. And so they were constantly complaining, it's too easy, it's too easy, it's too easy. And so my impression as someone who has not been playing is that they really went down the rabbit hole and made it even harder. And frankly, one of the things I thought was already a problem is that it was ridiculously hard. Just getting to the final boss, forget beating him. And I like challenging games, but if you're basically going to make it where, I have to play like 100 times to beat it once, I don't care anymore. Man, that better be the most compelling and fun gameplay loop ever. And I did not get that from Darkest Dungeon 2. So anyway, I am being a little long-winded there. I am going to look at it again, but it needs to show me something a lot better than what it did, or I'm going to be out really quickly. Okay. Ooh, Kirill Grushko asks, what are your thoughts on the math/RNG underlying Midnight Suns in terms of the balance of powers, abilities of enemies versus heroes, etc.? Holy crap. But you're giving me a lot of credit to think that I can analyze that effectively. I will say this. I think a lot of times we perceive this character or that character as being too weak or too strong. Every character in the game, if you get their deck right, especially with the right mods, and that's really hard to do, by the way. It's extremely expensive, both in terms of using essence and credits. But anyway, if you really tune their decks, every character can be made extremely powerful. Now, the problem is most of us aren't going to grind like 500 missions or whatever it takes to get every single character maxed out. Let me just say, I know 500 sounds ridiculous. On my first campaign, I'm on day 200, and I'm not even close to having all my characters at top level. I mean, what I mean by top level is A tier decks. So anyway, maybe the question I should really confine myself to is, how weak or strong are you versus the competition in the course of a normal campaign, where maybe you play 3 missions in between each story mission or something like that, something not completely ridiculous. I actually think the game is reasonably well balanced. I probably was off on my pacing in this campaign that you just watched. I probably should have been more consistent. Like early in the campaign, I should have done, let's say, again, 2 to 3 missions each between the story missions, and maybe lingered a little longer in the relatively short period of time when you're getting rare cards, because I always find those are hardest to get later. But I think if you're really trying to learn the game and get better at it, you can pretty easy. I mean, my God, you should definitely be able to beat normal. And I think you should be able to work your way up from there if you want to. So I think the balance is pretty good. You can certainly have awkward draws, like for an individual mission or something like that. But for the most part, I think the balance is pretty good. Jeff K asks, how do my friends and family feel about my YouTube hobby? That's a good question. To the extent that people know about it, they all think it's cool. It's not something I talk about at work or anything. I always kind of keep that line, between my personal life and my professional life. But my family knows and stuff like that. And especially like, my younger, nieces or nephews or something like that. They all think it's really cool, even though they're never going to watch this channel. They might watch like a few minutes of a video, but my content is very, very narrow, right? Like you have to be into these kind of games, and or you just aren't going to have any interest at all. And XCOM is not for everybody. Sailor JBN asks, what am I reading at the moment? So I am actually, partly because of Midnight Suns, I have finally gone back and been reading the comics when Captain Marvel was first created. I did not read them at the time. If I remember correctly, back when she was first created, man, I was still buying comics from a newsstand, and it was very spotty, what they would have on any given week. And so even books I was really into, like, Avengers or Fantastic Four, I might not get every month because they just didn't get a copy, or maybe they got a copy, but, somebody else bought it before I got there. So I never even saw, back then her name was Ms. Marvel on the shelf. Anyway, try to keep this story short. So I have always kind of been curious about her origins and how she started. So I was like, they've changed her so much in the last, I don't know, so many years. But what was she like back when she first launched? It's been interesting. I can't say it was like the greatest book I've ever read. I'm not finished yet, and it's going to be hard for me to slog my way through the rest of it. It's not a bad comic necessarily. It's just not especially good either. So anyway, let me see. Okay, Philip Bennett says, I'm a long-time listener, love your stuff. That being said, you often do a lot of thinking, analysis, etc. Then you quickly do your thing and say, I'm doing this. Yeah. I'm not sure. Oh, could you actually say what you're doing? I often miss what you're doing on this tiny phone. Okay. I'm glad you added the second comment, because I literally didn't know what you were trying to say. I was like, yeah, but if I was thinking it through and then I said, okay, let's do it, what more did you want? Okay, I understand what you're saying. So, yeah, that's fair. I know up here that a lot of people watch on phones, but when I'm recording, that's not top of mind. And so I am assuming that you can see what I'm doing. I will make the honest pledge that I will try to be better about that. I cannot promise you that I will remember, because I got to tell you, when you're recording, there's a lot going on up here. And it's already very difficult for me to like focus my thoughts on what's the next thing I should do and be speaking. Like, that's why a lot of times, like, I'll be talking to you and I'll have these pauses because it takes me a certain amount of time to speak, but in my mind, like, I'm already racing ahead, to the next thing. And then it's like the buffer between my head and my mouth runs out of material. And so I have to constantly like rein back in what I'm thinking about in terms of playing the game to be able to do the commentary. And it's very challenging. Like, it really is. If you've never done it, it's quite a skill. And I admire people who do it a lot more seamlessly than me, but I will try. New Noirthus asks, do you recommend buying Midnight Suns or wait for sale? I think it's going to go on sale. You're seeing small examples of that already. I think, unfortunately, again, because I don't mind that it's being discounted, I mind that the reason it's being discounted is the game is really faltering. But my answer in broad strokes is always, if it looks worth it to you, like if you really want to play the game now and it looks like it's worth $60, then you should buy it now. I would have no regrets having paid full price on release. I have like 250 hours, I think it is, in this game right now, and I'm still going. And so for me, totally worth 60, 70 bucks. Like, yeah, easy. That doesn't mean you're going to put that much time into it. That doesn't mean it's worth it for you. I will say, like, if it's something, where you're kind of on the fence about it, then you should probably wait, because I think you're going to get it for 40, 50% off in the near future. So, yeah. Let me see. Jason Garza asks, would you like to see any of the Warhammer Chaos Gate features implemented in XCOM 3 if it gets made, like armor recovery? Yeah, listen, this isn't even just limited to the Warhammer stuff. I think that they need to keep making XCOM fresh in some way. And so whether it's taking the armor, refreshing every turn, or whatever. That's one of the things. I know a lot of people were really down on Chimera Squad before it ever launched. And no, it was not a true XCOM 3. But I enjoyed Chimera Squad because it gave me something that felt like XCOM, but it also had things that were different. I kind of liked going into these smaller spaces, and every enemy I'm going to fight is on the map. I think they did have some reinforcements, but I didn't have to worry about triggering pods. But I did have to worry about getting flanked and stuff because we were in such a tight space. And so it gave me new challenges and new things to consider. I liked that. So I want them to keep, partially reinventing the franchise. Now, sure, I want XCOM 3 to give us, the full roster and customizing soldiers and stuff that Chimera Squad didn't. But I would love for it to pull some elements. Like, I would love it if in XCOM 3, you had some missions that were in the Chimera Squad mold, where you go into a tighter space and, you kind of have this knife fight in a phone booth type of thing. Go ahead, if there's good ideas in Warhammer 40K, or Lamplighters League, or Mutant Year Zero, or any of these games, don't be ashamed of borrowing them. And just give us something great, But man, we gotta have a development team work on XCOM 3 to worry about it. I'm not sure when that's going to happen. So Jeff Harper says the balance for New Game Plus starting on Ultimate 3 is dreadful. They definitely balanced it for the gradual bumping. Yeah. Well, the good thing is, other than being in the middle of a mission, you can change the difficulty whenever you want. And I know there are some people, it really means something to them to only play at the highest level. I'm not one of them. I don't give a damn. Like, honestly, I don't want there to be no difficulty, but if I weren't playing for the camera and for your enjoyment, I would gladly, not always play on quite as high a level of difficulty as I often do. Because I like a challenge, but like it doesn't have to be like, geez, I just barely squeaked through, But I know for some people that is the only thing they enjoy. Wow, I love this question because it's just such a wonderfully random thing. Bulletproof Blouse asks, do you like hot drinks? Not a lot. I will drink hot chocolate once every few years. I don't like coffee. I do drink hot tea when I'm sick, mostly, like if I have a sore throat. But that's about it. And by the way, I think they're much better for you than cold drinks. So thank you for that question. I love the random weird stuff. Not that I mind talking about games. I mean, I love Midnight Suns and XCOM and all that, but I love when people just ask about the stuff that goes way outside the box. Jelani Wood asks, have you seen and considered playing Phantom Brigade? I think it matches your sensibilities very well. I'm currently playing through it and enjoying it. I have not heard of it, I don't think, but I will check it out. This is something I always do. When people mention a game, it doesn't mean I'm going to play it, but I'll always look it up after, and see like, what is this? And at least I can't remember the game right now, but I remember one time it did lead to a series. Let's see. Thank you, Mystery Meat. He was saying he enjoyed the trailer breakdown for Lamplighter League. Yeah, it's always interesting to me because most of the time when I see people do the trailer reactions, they just literally watch the trailer and press record for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And that's, all the thought they put into it. And I really try to, comb through very slowly. And I was really surprised, like, man, there's a lot in here, once you start going through. And some of it is exactly what I would expect. But the thing is, like, you can't assume it's going to be that way. Like, oh, I see they have a percentage chance to hit in combat. But you don't know that it's going to be that way. Sure, XCOM did it, but like Warhammer 40K didn't. Now that would be an interesting change for XCOM. Man, can you imagine if they got rid of the percent chance to hit? What would people complain about? Don't worry, they'd find something. Kirill Grushko, would you share at least a glimpse of what you're planning to discuss in your upcoming Jake Solomon demise video? Well, Jake's not dead. He just left for Axis. I'm interested in what it all means for the future of XCOM, TRPGs in general. Yeah, I don't want to say much because then, why watch that video when it comes out? But to me, the interesting thing is that there's a much bigger pattern here than just Jake leaving. So I'm going to leave it at that. And I want to do some research. That's one reason I haven't done it yet, because there's some things I want to get my facts straight on before I start bloviating, because that would be really embarrassing if I started running my mouth and then I was actually saying things that weren't true. But yeah, I do think that I will just say this. It's probably not good news for XCOM 3, but yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. Okay. So Derek White says, no insult to your age, but I love seeing older people playing video games. I had no idea you were a senior. Yeah, I guess I fit in that term. And I know I don't take it as an insult. Yeah, I think how can I say this? When video games were first becoming a big deal, I was already an adult. And I don't know that a lot of my contemporaries were there with me. You know what I mean? So I do think it's relatively uncommon. Of course, there's people my age and older who game. Um, but like, yeah, I was not at an age, for example, where when the Nintendo Entertainment System was a big deal, I would go to school and we would talk about how you beat this level or that level or anything. God, I was probably in college by then. So anyway, yeah, listen, I've always enjoyed it though. For as long as video gaming has existed, going back to like, Space Invaders and asteroids and like the ancient stuff in the arcades, I just took to it right away. And board games too, for that matter. Let me see. So Felipe asked, you had a few comments during the last playthrough about the MCU, but would you mind saying a bit more about your thoughts about it? Like movies you watched, what do you think they got right or wrong? Oh my God. Well, I could do an hour or 2 hours on that topic alone. That's not an exaggeration either. I'll give you what used to be called the Reader's Digest version. Now it'd be TLDR, I guess. But I feel like even that's getting archaic. I loved, or at least really enjoyed, most of the first three phases, they call it, the movies up through Endgame. There were some I certainly liked more than others. There were only a couple that I would say I actively disliked. And even, I would say, maybe only one. The thing, though, that has grated on me from the very beginning is that I understand they're going to make changes from the comics. But this is the thing you have to understand, right? Like, I'm not coming to the theater new and fresh and just waiting to see whatever they give me. I have a long history with these characters, and I know most of them, not all, but most of them very well. So when you say Hawkeye, for example, is going to be in the Avengers, I get excited because I love the brash, smartass who over time grew into somebody who was still a smartass, but more mature and more of a leader. And he just had a great, character arc over time. So when I go to the theater and then I see this mopey assassin who's just whining all the time, that's not Hawkeye. It's a guy with a bow and arrow, but it's not Hawkeye. And so that is something that they've done more and more of. It's been there from the beginning, but they will take the name of somebody and maybe give them their powers, although in some cases they don't even do that. And then, like I'm supposed to pretend that this is that character. And I'm not there for it. So this recent slate of movies, like when I first heard they were going to do a Shang-Chi movie, oh my God, I was so happy. And I loved that character. I read him for years and years. That wasn't him. In no way did it remind me of him. Like they could have done this great combination of like, imagine kind of James Bond, but with Hong Kong, Kung Fu movie action. That's what that series was. And also they had this great, like, he would do all this introspection and stuff. It was all about him kind of growing as a person. You can only fit so much of that in one movie. But I'll kind of use that film as an example where it's like you're just taking the name of somebody and then just completely doing a different thing and making it about these stupid bracelets, but you're calling them rings. And so instead of it being about the skill that he spent his life developing, and that's how he, fights for what's right. And now it's just, woo, magic CGI bullcrap. Like, okay. So I am going to be seeing fewer and fewer movies from the MCU going forward. In fact, Guardians 3, just because it's going to wrap up those characters' story, it may be the last one I go to for a long time. We'll see. They gotta win me back, and I don't see any sign of them doing that. Derek White, thank you very much. He says, I've used your videos multiple times for XCOM 2. They're like evergreen videos. I will tell you that for the channel, they're evergreen. Most months, those are my most watched videos, are the guides that I made years ago. Let's see. Ava Trim asks, what would you say is Midnight Sun's biggest problem? The card mechanics, the too long animations, the story exposition, or something else? Okay. I don't think the animations are too long. If you do, that's totally cool. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I love the animations. It's one of my favorite things in the game. And I'll tell you the thing I think that really won my heart the very first day I played it was the fact that when magic moves across the map, she uses a portal. And I don't mean to attack. I mean just literally when you use move to go from here to there. If magic does it, she'll open a portal in front of her and then come out of a portal over there. If Spider-Man does it, he'll use his webs to swing across. They all, Captain Marvel will fly across. They all do it with their own personality and their own powers. And I feel like I am there with those characters, and I love it. So I don't mind any of that at all. However, man, you got me when you mentioned the story exposition. And it isn't really the story. It's when you come back from a story mission and you got to do 5 conversations in a row that drag on, and most of them say nothing. It's Doctor Strange whining because he doesn't have the sanctum anymore, and Tony crying because Bruce outsmarted him. And maybe one of those conversations will actually be informative and move the story forward in some way, or tell you something interesting about the character. And if that was the only one you did, you would have been like, wow, that was just one more thing, that made this a great mission and experience when I came back from the mission. And instead, because it's sandwiched in between all this filler crap, it all sucks. You can't wait to just get through all of it. I've said it before and I've said it again. This game, I actually lowballed it. When I did my good, bad, and the ugly video, I said they should have cut it by at least half. I mean, now I honestly think it should be a minimum of 2/3, if not 75, 80%. They should have cut massive amounts of these conversations out. Really, really way too much. So that's my least favorite thing. And if I ever play again, off camera, which I can't see starting a new campaign ever, but I would be clicking through and skipping every cutscene. I'm over it. But the story itself, I don't have a problem with. It's okay. Okay. Zapil asks, do you have a process for picking a game to feature on the channel? I know turn-based is kind of niche in the grand scheme of games, and the community is kind of divided on different styles as it is. Some prefer lore-heavy turn-based, and others prefer go here, kill this, and you're 100% right. The number one criteria is I have to like it. I have to really want to play it. At least I have to think I want to. I've gotten stuck. Oh God, what was that one? Tropico. I think it was Tropico 3 that I played for the channel. I was really interested in it, and the series had a good reputation. And I got partway into it, and I hated it. I mean, I really hated playing that game, and the more I played it, the more I hated it. But I started the series and I wanted to finish it, and I did. But mostly, yeah. So I need to like it, and I need to think it's something. So, like, okay, it can't be ridiculously long. So people will ask me about Wasteland 3. I'm sorry, I'm not playing like a 100-hour game. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to do 230-minute parts. And then I'm basically like 9 months or something, 10 months that I'm playing this damn thing every day for the channel. I can't do it. Likewise, Long War. Now, I tried Long War off camera. I didn't really get into it. And the fact that I had a bug in like the 4th mission or something that trapped me inside a building, I could not get out of the building, that didn't help either. It has to be of a length, like honestly, Midnight Suns, that's as long as I'm ever going to go. That and Darkest Dungeon 1 are tied for like the longest series I've ever done. And so there's a few things. I am also would prefer if it's a new game, or at least, you know, pretty new, because like I said, it's not like I'm constantly chasing views. I mean, it's not like I'm PewDiePie or something and I need to get, you know, 1 million views to pay for my mansion this week. But I want there to be some interest in the game. You know, I mean, like I don't need to do a long series where I'm getting 50 views a video. That's really depressing at a certain point. So, there's my honest answer on that. But I don't have like a whole checklist or anything. Vadrum says, now that The Last Spell got its full release, are you interested in doing another play of it past the point you got in early access? Yeah, I am interested. I noticed that too. Now, I will say Last Spell was one where I did do a number of videos, and unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of interest in it on the channel. A lot of people didn't want to watch it and even made some kind of negative comments about the game. Not like nasty towards me, but just made it really clear they didn't have any interest in watching it. And that's not something I normally get. Like, I didn't get big numbers on Midnight Suns, but I didn't have people like posting in videos that, hey, this game sucks. When are you going to play something, you know, worth watching? And I kind of got some of that in Last Spell. So I don't know for sure if I'm going to do that or not. But I do want to at least check it out. So I will say, though, kind of like what I said about Darkest Dungeon 2 earlier, I fear that they have really leaned into making it more difficult. Ray, come on. He's scratching my monitor. So I don't know. I won't like it if they've made it ridiculous. Let's see. Kirill asks, do you watch any sports? And if so, which ones? Yeah, I used to watch a ton of sports. I used to be huge fans of baseball, football, and basketball. And when I say football, forgive me to the international audience, I mean American football. I don't mean what we call soccer. So I recently, though, when the NFL playoffs were going on, so our football, I actually signed up. I don't even have like cable TV or anything like that anymore. I got rid of it years ago. But I signed up for a streaming service that basically replicated that. And I watched most of the playoff games all the way up through the Super Bowl. I enjoyed it, but it's a ton of time, and I just can't often give up, you know, whole weekends to sit around watching sports. So I immediately canceled the package the night of the Super Bowl. And I may do the same thing next year, but like, I don't think I can watch every Sunday for the whole season. Like, weekends are like, for example, yesterday, that's when I got most of the work done on this Lamplighter League video. You know, it takes me hours and hours to do it. And on weeknights, I usually only get a couple hours. So it'll either take me like an entire week of nights, or, you know, I can do most of it in a day. So it's like, you know, I really need those weekend days. And so sitting around watching sports is not something I usually have the luxury of doing. Yeah, Vatrum does mention that I got stuck with the Banner Saga 2. That's the one you were trying to think of. Um, yeah, it was a combination of they had this one mission with a massive difficulty spike. And unlike all the other missions in the game, where if you fail the mission, you fail the mission. Like, I actually prefer that. Like the XCOM model of you lost, deal with it. I like that. And most Banner Saga missions work that way. But when they have a story mission, if you fail, it's just like reload your save. And I found that mission so annoying, and it really pissed me off on multiple levels, partly because they'd done something similarly stupid in the first Banner Saga. For the final mission, they got huge backlash and apparently learned nothing. So that was one of the very rare times where I bailed. Basically, I rage quit. You don't see me do that. Ooh, Jason Garza, what a good question. Any hidden gems you think we should seek out and give a try? Well, listen, I don't know how it is now, but I loved Last Spell when I was playing it. I'll tell you another one. If you like deck builders, I thought Roguebook was a wonderful game, and it didn't find an audience, but I really liked it. I thought it was beautifully, animated and had a great art style and stuff. But it's a deck builder. It's not like, an XCOM type game. So you have to be down for what it is. But I really enjoyed it, and it didn't find an audience. So it definitely would qualify as it's hidden. Whether you think it's a gem, that's different. What else? I thought Mutant Year Zero was phenomenal. Now, I've done a series on the channel, and I know like the game is known kind of, but I don't get the impression it sold that much. So, Sailor JBN asks, loved your video with Syken. Are there more coming in the future? I think so. He and I both want to do it, but the problem is I'm not trying to like throw him under the bus. Syken, I am busy. Okay. But Syken's schedule, I've gotten a little insight into it. I won't go into any detail whatsoever because it's not my stories to tell, but his schedule is just bonkers. He's so busy. And I've realized how incredibly disciplined he must be to just put out the normal daily videos that he does for his channel. And so I think fitting in anything else is very difficult for him. But I know he wants to do it. I'm ready and willing to do it. I do think you'll see more videos, that we collaborate on in some form or fashion in the future. So, yeah, but I don't know when. But yeah, I would love to do it. Mr. Meat asks, do you think you will do any more collabs with other creators like you did with Syken? Perhaps a Let's Try on a multiplayer game. I don't have any plans to. And the thing is, I don't really know anybody. Okay, I met Christopher Odd at the one thing for Midnight Suns. He has 500,000 subscribers and I have roughly 30,000. So I'm not going to approach Chris and be like, hey, do you want to do a collab? Because clearly it's so one-sided where he has this huge audience and I'm, a fraction of that size. That's just silly. And I don't really know anybody else. But I would be open to it. I think the other issue is I'm not really a big multiplayer game guy. I would need to find a game that I was halfway decent at. Years ago, there was a guy who had found my channel. God, this was way back when Civilization 5 was the mainstay of my channel. And he and I were talking about doing a collab. But of all things, he wanted to do Borderlands 2. And I had played some Borderlands 2, but I wasn't any good. And I told him that. I can get by on my own playing on whatever the normal difficulty was. But he really wanted to play co-op Borderlands 2. And so anyway, it didn't work out because I'm no good. I told him. So, and he's long since, moved on to other stuff now. Anyway, so I'm open to it, but there isn't anybody that I know and think like, oh, hey, maybe the two of us could do a thing. Zapiel asks favorite beer. So I actually don't, and I don't drink alcohol at all. I never have. Um, I won't go into the whole thing, but at a very young age, I realized like I don't want to drink alcohol. I don't want to do drugs. I'm just not interested in any of that type of experience. Um, Now, otherwise, do I have a favorite non alcoholic drink that's not orange Gatorade? No, they don't sponsor me, by the way. Um, yeah, for the record, Gatorade is not my favorite drink, although I do like it. And it's much less calories than like soft drinks, like Pepsi or Coke or something like that. And so I drink it, and it helps keep my voice halfway decent when I'm doing videos. What is my favorite? I actually like milk is kind of the staple of my diet, so I do love milk. If we're just going by what's the most tasty, I really like Pepsi, so probably that. A stag, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing this correctly, but Stag Share says, is the early game of XCOM the most challenging? Yes, it's not close. Both Enemy Unknown and in XCOM 2, the early missions, you have almost no margin for error. One crit in particular will kill you. And so, man, like you need to really take care of your business and put down those enemies quick, or you're going to lose guys. And then once you start getting the good armor and the good weapons, I mean, how often do you lose a guy in the late game? And it's so funny because they go out of their way. I mean, they make those enemies really powerful, but your power has grown so much. I mean, man, it's crazy. So, yeah, 100%, it's the early game. If HMS, since you seem to like deck builders, how come you didn't get more into Slay the Spire? I don't know. I tried it, didn't like it. Why don't you like anything? Sometimes you don't. And the funny thing is, I it's been so long since I tried Slay the Spire, to give you a more serious, less flippant answer. I don't remember what I didn't like. I think part of it is the graphics did nothing to pull me in. I mean, it was like stick figures from what I remember. Um, and it's funny because I mentioned I like Roguebook. And Roguebook has the same structure in the sense that you build up your deck throughout the game like you do in a deck builder. And then when that campaign or whatever you want to call it is over, you go back to ground zero. Oh, Matthew Pennell, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Have a Gatorade on me. Very well, sir. I will do that. Oh, God. I went down the wrong pipe. I got so excited about the super chat. So anyway, why it bothers me in Slay the Spire, but it did, like going back to nothing. Like I finally was starting to get a couple of good cards and then I got beat and I go back to nothing. It doesn't bother me as much when I'm playing Roguebook. I don't know why. But I didn't really like Slay the Spire. I wouldn't go so far as to say I disliked it or anything. I don't think it's a bad game. But whatever it was that pulled, because so many people really went down that rabbit hole, right? That game was hugely popular. Yeah, it wasn't there for me. Zapiel asks, what's my keyboard and mouse setup? So my keyboard is very generic. Let me see if I can tell. Yeah, that's what I thought. It's a Logitech. And it's just a very simple, like, I don't buy gaming keyboards or anything like that. Now, my mouse is the Razer Death Adder Elite. Unlike most Razers, it's pretty reasonably priced, and it is the most comfortable mouse I've ever used. Here, let me try to do this. It does have a couple of little programmable buttons here on the side. I have never programmed a damn thing into them. I don't care. I just use it as a regular mouse. And I will say, unlike most Razer products where the price kind of, skeeves me out, if you're looking for just a good, comfortable mouse to use, I mean, I don't know of one that's better. So I love it. Ooh, chemical imbalance. Favorite ice cream topping. I think it's chopped almonds. Like you'll get these little slices of almonds, and very closely related to that, sometimes they'll do chopped peanuts. Those are quite good too. Oh, but what am I thinking? It's chocolate syrup. No, forget what I said. I mean, I love the almonds on top of that, but vanilla ice cream with chocolate syrup, like, chocolate. You can't go wrong with chocolate. Kirill Grushko, to revisit what we were talking about a minute ago about multiplayer, you could probably set up a small XCOM 2 multiplayer club and play with your subscribers. I am not positive that you can still play multiplayer in XCOM 2. I think they may have shut that down. I'm pretty sure I remember hearing that they killed those servers because like nobody was playing. And I myself have never played multiplayer. However, to your larger point, I would be down. Like, the only reason I've never tried to do something like that is because I know that multiplayer exists in XCOM 2, but it's never been popular. I've never really been into a game that I can think of, at least since I've had the channel, where multiplayer was really like a common thing, like, yeah, back when I played MMOs, sure, like I would have been happy to do a thing where we could have our own, guild and group together and stuff like that. And I would be more than willing to do that with subscribers. But now like it's just so much harder. Like if I'm playing Midnight Suns, there is nothing. There is no multiplayer thing. Warhammer 40K, nothing. Like most of the games that I'm playing, it's either not an option at all or pretty much everybody acknowledges it's just not very good. So, and Evatrum does say with regard to Slay the Spire, not really stick figures, but not that far off either. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to lean too hard into it because it's been a long time and my memory of the game is pretty fuzzy, but I do remember it being like super primitive art. And Jason Garza, thank you. He says, just wanted to say thank you. Your videos have introduced me to strategy games and have made many a time trying to deal with anxiety so much easier, focusing on strategy and settling my brain. Thanks, sir. Very happy to help. Thank you for sharing that. It really does mean a lot to me, to hear stuff like that. And I think that is one of the things, well, the Let's Plays can certainly be sort of a really long form guide for people, but you tend to get comments of that type more on the actual guide videos. And it's really clear, like, I know most people that just watch and they leave and they may be grateful, they may not, but they don't share that, necessarily. But a lot of people do take the time to really say like, oh my God, thank you. This was so frustrating. Like most recently, the ones that I did for Midnight Suns to solve those challenge puzzles they have for each hero, some of them aren't bad. Like I just uploaded one for Deadpool. It was one of the relative few that I think I solved on my very first pass through. some of these damn things, like the hunters, like that's literally what inspired me to make the guide. Is the hunter was the first one I did, and I thought this thing is stupid complicated and hard, and they basically cheat to make it hard. And I thought, well, if I'm struggling with it that much, I bet other people will too. And that's kind of how I've always approached guides and stuff. So anyway, I'm glad it helped you. And I guess with that, we've been going for a little over an hour. I see a couple others, so I'll finish what's already been posted, and then I'm going to go ahead and go. Kirill is kind of echoing what Jason said, so thank you. I'm very glad. You're welcome, and thank you for the kind words. Scott McDonald said, I tried playing Phoenix Point. It was pretty bad for me. Every enemy was so repetitive. Creature with pistol, creature with shotgun, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I don't know if you were here earlier. Somebody asked me about Phoenix Point, and I said I didn't care for it when I played, and I have heard it's better. I don't know for myself. But yeah, I didn't like it. And I didn't, you know what's really sad? There's legitimately nothing that I came away from and I thought, I didn't love it overall, but man, like that one thing was really cool. Like I was talking about Midnight Suns earlier. Let's say I didn't like the game, which I do, but let's say I didn't. I would still have looked at it and been like, damn though, like those combat and movement animations, those were sweet. They really brought the characters to life in an amazing way. You would hope most games would have something like that. So I don't know. It's built a fan base, maybe not as big as they hoped it would be. And they turned a lot of people off early on, myself included. But yeah, I do think a lot of people who've tried Phoenix Point, it's not their jam. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call it here. I really appreciate everybody who has shown up, and especially if you contributed with questions. Very hard to do the Q&A without the Q. So yes, you are necessary. At any rate, hopefully we'll do one of these again, not too far in the future, but that is all for now. Thank you for watching. I hope we see you next time.